shout.
It's like a feedback.
Okay, yeah, I think so. I'm just going to start off this evening's proceedings. My name is Carl Fraser. I would firstly like to thank you all for coming. There is a donations box which is kind of hiding behind the speakers. As you probably, yeah, as you probably know, donations are always very welcome. There's no obligation to, but it would be nice if you can donate. There's also a couple of clipboards which I'm about to pass around if you want to know more information either about the Putney Debates, this session, future sessions, or just generally things that are happening with Occupy. So I'll pass those around once I stop speaking. There's also a live stream. There's 2 live streams which are happening at the moment, which means that relatively soon they'll also be on the website. So if you want to kind of look back on the archive footage. So I'll move on to our speakers now, and I'll just kind of quickly introduce them. So we have Barb Jacobsen. She's the coordinator of the European Citizens Initiative in the UK. She's author of Basic Income UK, promoting an unconditional basic income as a progressive policy towards an emancipatory welfare state for the UK and beyond. You can correct me on that. We also have Duncan McCann, who works as a researcher for NEF, the New Economics Foundation, who's working on the issue of monetary reform, complementary currencies, and financial system innovation. We also have Ben Baumberg to my left. He's a senior lecturer in sociology and social policy at the University of Kent, and he also helped to set up the collaborative research blog Inequalities. On the line, we have Harry Shutt, who, as long as the Skype connection holds, which is doing so at the moment, we should be able to get some comment from him a little later on. Harry's a freelance economist, consultant, and author of numerous books on the world economy. I think the speaking order will be Barbara, Duncan, and then Ben. Barbara will speak about unconditional basic income, broadly speaking, Duncan on democratising money, and Ben on social security, and then we might open things up to the floor a little bit. So, if you're happy, I'll pass it to you.
Sure. Right. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to give a very brief introduction to basic income, and then sort of pass it on to other people. And then we might have a discussion up here, and then we'll have a discussion with you, or we'll just see how things go, basically. And it's all up to us anyway. So, for people who don't know, unconditional basic income is exactly that. It's a regular payment that goes to each individual universally and is high enough to live on. That's the definition we use at Unconditional Basic Income Europe. There's also Basic Income Earth Network. They don't have the high enough clause in that, partly because they work a lot with people in Africa and India doing pilot studies where they take less than subsistence, and they've done quite a lot of good work on basic income in that way. My reasons for supporting it really arise from my work as a benefits advisor, and also as somebody who has actually lived on benefits for quite a while. If you haven't had any contact with the system, you may not know, but it's extremely complex. It's very punitive. It's getting more and more punitive as things are going on with this government. And basic income is something which because it goes to everybody, there is no stigma attached to it. I mean, that's the other thing that's really been, I feel, has really been emphasized lately is getting people to really internalize, the idea that they absolutely have to work, or that they're somehow sort of lesser human beings if they're not actually looking for their money. It also, basic income also addresses the change in working patterns in the sense that it gives people a floor of security, regardless of whether they're working 0-hour contracts or they're working part-time. It recognizes the work that we do, which the market doesn't pay for, like childcare and elder care and the various other voluntary work, the things that we do for our communities, which the market won't pay for. It gives people I think it would give people the power to actually improve their working conditions, whether that's actually raising wages, or whether that's better health and safety, whether it, and also to refuse employment where it's actually damaging to themselves or damaging to the environment. I think that's really a key issue now, especially that we've got things like fracking and other sorts of policies which are being pushed. It gives, certainly from my background, I started out in the 80s very much involved with various feminist groups, and one key thing for me is the fact that it would give women a lot more power to leave dangerous or violent situations. If you've got the money to leave, then you can go, all right? And you don't, it sort of gets away a bit from, simply the woman having to, complain to the police or whatever, which is always a problematic thing. If you can just pick up sticks and move, then that actually gives you a lot more power in that situation. And also, finally with it, I think it also, it gives us, it kind of changes the conversation about work. I think people are becoming more and more aware that there's almost like an inverse proportion, there's an inverse relationship between the usefulness of the work you do and how much you get paid. So therefore, bankers and insurance people get paid vast amounts of money where, we wouldn't actually notice if they disappeared. Whereas, rubbish collectors and nurses and and teachers are not, especially when you're starting out, are not paid very much. And yet society couldn't really function without that. So those are my reasons for supporting. If I can just just briefly go over some of the reasons that the arguments against it, and maybe sort of fend off a little bit in the beginning. Their first reaction to it is that, oh well, people won't do anything. If you have enough to, especially if you have actually enough to live on. This has been proven by pilot studies, and these are pilot studies which don't even give people actually enough to live on. They're just being paid like say 30 to 50% of subsistence. But again, time and time again, the pilot studies have shown that people do actually work, and the people who work less are the people that you'd actually want to work less, like mothers of young children, for example, or older people who are getting close to retirement and may physically have been damaged by their jobs or whatever, and really ought to be able to leave when they're ready to leave. Another argument against is, oh well, won't it cost too much? Yes, it would cost a lot. No question, especially if we actually paid everybody enough, really to live on. However, I think in the last few years we've had the bank bailouts. We have this endless drive to war. There always seems to be enough money for war, for example. There are a lot of different ways. There's been a lot of talk lately about the money hidden away in tax havens. And the fact of the matter is that, if you look at productivity versus wages, wages have either flatlined or gone down, whereas productivity has soared with the use of technology. So, in as much as any money or value comes out of labor, then there's absolutely enough to pay it. Because it's something that's said to be supported on both the right and the left. Just to make the distinction, there's the kind of, when people say, oh well, Milton Friedman supported basic income. Well, he didn't support basic income. He supported what's known as a negative income tax, which is pretty much like tax credits. So you'd have to, say you were paid something at the beginning, then you'd have to pay back at the end if you were in too much type of thing. And this is really not what we want to get into. They also, certainly from my perspective, I can see that there are a lot of services which, universal services like the NHS, like education, etc., which I think would still need to be provided in some kind of collective way. I think there also might be different ways to do it if we actually had time to think about it properly. But I don't think basic income, basic income could include those services as well as the actual money. And then the other issue that people raise is, what about other special needs? Like, say, if you have a disability. Again, I think those issues need to be tackled separately. And if we had, say, a basic income of 20,000, then that would actually be much more than almost anybody on a disability benefit is making. So that's what I have to say. and I'll pass it over to someone else. Okay.